Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our pre-match press conference to preview our game against Ipswich. And we'll start off with Vinny from Sky.
Sean, before we look ahead to the game, can we first of all get your thoughts on the appointment of Thomas Tuchel as the new England manager?
I think like most, I've spent all my life watching English football, being part of it. I think most would have liked an English coach, I think. Well, that's the general feeling I get from people I've spoken to in the game and the general kind of viewpoint from the masses, it seems. But on the other hand, I think the game's diversifying all the time. It's someone who's right for the job, and he clearly has got a record that suggests he can do the job, and that's for sure. So I think, that's just the way it is. I think results will be important for obvious reasons, but they always are if you're manager of England, I'm sure of that.
How do you feel yourself about an Englishman not getting the opportunity?
Well, I can only imagine there's a big process to go through. They mentioned approximately 10. I don't know how it's approximately. It's either 10 or not. I was quite intrigued by that. Anyway, out of the 10, I would imagine there has been some English, British coaches interviewed. I don't know for sure. I certainly wasn't. Not that I asked to be. I'm just making it clear in case you want to ask. But no, I think they'll have gone through a heavy process, I would imagine, to get to where they've got to.
Here, how far have you gone to rediscovering the solidity and resilience that we saw a lot last season?
Well, we're showing signs of it, and I think more so the last game. By no means we're as good in other games as we've been in other games, and there's still a lot of work to be done from them performances, the previous games. But we showed that resilience, as you suggest. We've got a good clean sheet. Came back to getting a lot of the basics right, actually, to keep a good side at bay. Newcastle can get a result. So it's showing signs. I mean, it's helpful if we can get players fit again. We're still missing a few, but a few are a lot closer than they were.
With those players that be missing, so where are we at with Branthwaite, Mykolenko, Coleman and Patterson, first of all?
Well, first of all, Mykolenko's looking good, so that's a good step in the right direction. Seamus is back in the group, and he's had more or less the week. Jared's a bit behind them, but he's been on the grass with us, but a little bit behind them. Who's the one I'm missing? You mentioned. Oh, Pato, yeah. Well, he's just on his longer-term sort of plan to get him back, but he's looking fitter and sharper all the time. Not quite there yet, but he's training all the time, and so far he's coming through it clean, which is really important, as in clear of injuries.
And Chermiti and Broja as well?
Yeah, a bit longer term. Youssef's been incredibly unlucky, probably the most unlucky out of all of them, with the oddest injury. And he's making good progress now. He's on the grass with the sports scientists, and so is Broja. So he's in front of Youssef with his comeback, if want of a better way of putting it. He will need a games programme, but he's certainly working actively now with the sports science group, and hopefully he'll be crossing over with us soon.
And obviously, we saw Ndiaye come off with seemingly an injury in the first game against Malawi. Then he came on as a substitute for Senegal in the second game. So how is he? Has he come through unscathed?
Yeah, it settled down really quickly. I think it was one of them that to be cautious at first, but it settled down, and he was clear-minded. We spoke to him. He said, no, I'm clear to be involved in that second game. And he's come back and he's trained today, so we're hopeful on that one.
Finally, for me, Sean, you've obviously got 2 winless sides in your next 3 games now in Ipswich and then Southampton as well. We can build it up as an opportunity, your big opportunity to pull yourselves further away from trouble. But how do you see it?
No, every game's an opportunity, but of course the league doesn't lie. It's there for a reason. It can have its anomalies, but at the moment, we feel we are an anomaly because we've been in the driving seat a couple of times and let them situations change. That's been down to us and me. We're somewhat correcting that at the moment. We need to correct it further. But you can't take these teams for granted. Ipswich will be full of endeavour like teams do, especially when they've spent a small a recognised fortune in this level of football for a club who've just come up. So they're obviously intent on being in the division. Fulham in between, and then Southampton having a fair challenge. That's what happens. It's not easy to go into the Premier League. So I don't know. I say, the one thing I've learned from my approaching my 10th year in the Premier League, you can't take anyone for granted. There's no gimmies. I spoke to bigger managers, done a lot more in the game than me, managing bigger clubs than me in their times, and they said you can't take for granted. You just can't. You have to be right in every game. You have to get the details right, and we haven't got them right until the last 3 games, where we've got more right than what we were getting early season. So if we can get the details right at both ends, perform properly and appropriately, then I believe we can win games. And certainly out of these 3, I'd like to think we're capable.
Thanks, Vinny.
Hello, Sean. What have you made of Ipswich start in the Premier League?
Well, I think they did terrific, first of all, last season. They brought a lot of different players in, added to it financially, which is a choice that is not easy for clubs, coming up. I know the guys there pretty well, and I think they're good operators. They're learning as they go. Last time out was a tough one. That can happen in the Premier League, and it's hard to get a handle on it. And some game you think you have got a handle on it, it goes away from you. So there'll be a learning curve there. Every game will be a learning curve. But from what I've seen so far, full of endeavour, full of belief to take it on. And I think that's something we've got to be ready for.
Just on Gerrard, is he available potentially for this game, or
we'll have to make a decision on it because he's only really had a couple of days training with us, and last time he got through the game and then got a minor injury, but it still cost him a few weeks, so we've got to be careful with that one. So we'll have to make a call probably over the next 24 hours.
Thank you.
Chermiti?
But his injury is fine at the moment.
Yeah,
it's just his training schedule. That's the thing, by the way, just to be clear.
Just on Tuchel's appointment, if you're an English coach coming through now, do you think it's disheartening that the FA have gone for a non-British coach?
I don't think it's disheartening. I think it's just a reality of the modern game. Each pathway doesn't always lead to where you want it to. You can only suggest down the history, or certainly my history with the FA is, in theory, the idea was to get English coaches, fast track certain members if needs be, get them through the system, create that platform for coaches going into the system and therefore managing the country. But it's changed so much, football management and the view of it. Now they've obviously looked at it differently, and at the end of the day, we all of us want to win inevitably. And I think that sometimes it sort of gets lost in modern football. It's almost like, yeah, but how are you going to do this? How are you going to do that? What about winning? So I don't think he'll be under any illusion, as manager. Forgetting about nationalities, he'll know that he's been put in there to try and win. Because Gareth did an amazing job, in my opinion, did a fantastic job in many different ways of his job with England. But we didn't win, so can we go on and take it to the next level? That would be his biggest challenge, beyond all the rest of the noise, is trying to win something.
How do you think he will get on?
Well, we'll see. There's plenty of very, very good managers have tried over the years since '66, and no one's quite done it, so we'll see.
And you said you weren't involved in the process this time. Has there ever been a time when you have been involved?
No.
Never been spoken to about the job, no? Is it the dream, the job for any British coach?
I'm not sure dream's the right word for the England job. I think it's a respected job for the right reasons. There's someone who's been in the English game all my life, player, coach, manager, of course, but I don't think it's a dream. I think, having spoke to a few England managers, I don't think it's necessarily a dream. I think it's a massively challenging job and changed over the years. But yeah, it's certainly something I think in some point of your career you'd like to have a look at. But it's certainly not my time now. For lots of coaches, by the way, not just me. But yeah, eventually it's something you'd look at. Eddie Howe was one who's sort of noised, rightly so. But he may look at it differently with what's going on at Newcastle. Some managers, still learning as well. A lot of international managers are older and wiser and been around a bit longer. Maybe some of the coaches were looked at and maybe they thought that. I'm not putting words out of his mouth, by the way, but he was certainly one who I looked at and thought, well, yeah, he's someone who you could consider in that kind of frame to be England manager. But like I say, they've got I'm sure they've had a depth of process to go through it, and they've chosen someone they think can win.
One on Everton, if that's okay.
That'd be nice.
Looks like a tough run in December for the bigger teams. Is the next 4 or 5 fixtures, are you looking at targeting those where you can pick up points?
Look, we've got to pick up points regardless of tough runs. We had different kind of toughness last season, points deductions and all the rest of it. So, our focus has been clear on the challenge right in front of us. We can't just keep looking at different areas of the league and all that sort of stuff. We've got to make sure that we're right in every game. It's a belief of mine ever since I've been here. It was a belief of mine in my previous club. You can only plan so much looking forwards, and this season has been very, very difficult to plan anyway. You know the injuries we've had. It's been a constant process, constant churn of trying to get players fit. People imagine you get them fit and you put them out there. They're not truly match fit. We've been trying to get a group of players all truly match fit, and we're just beginning to show signs of it. But we've still got players coming back from injury. So for us at the minute, it's just the next game is really, really important. Be right for that one. We look at who we've got available, hopefully no more injuries, hopefully getting people fitter again, and then we move on to the next one.
Cheers.
Afternoon, we'll go to Julia.
Hey Sean, can I just check on James Garner? There's been some claims about his fitness, and also just given his performances recently at right back, although he might not have been what you envisaged to have at right back, is it his place to lose now?
Well, Jimmy and Tim are the ones who missed out, actually. So Tim, unfortunately, has got a stress response of a bone in his foot, so he's going to be weeks, not days, unfortunately. We're disappointed he's had a good start to season, good pre-season. And we'll come back through it, but we're not sure on the timescales. Jim is similar. Jimmy's got a back situation. We're just monitoring at the moment. It's settling down, but we're not going to have anything too concrete until probably about the next week or so, when we'll know more, see how he responds to the treatment. So, yeah, and he has come back to life, so to speak. You know, he's had an interrupted time in pre-season at the beginning of the season, and I thought he's done very well since he's been back in amongst it.
Jordan Pickford was rested in the second England game. I just wondered, he hasn't had much of a break. He had a fantastic summer for England. Have you seen any signs of fatigue with him?
No, I mean, we gave him as much time extra as we could, to get a break, mental break as well as physical. And I don't think so. I think, he's had his fair share of question marks this season, but so have we, so have I. So have what we've been trying to achieve. It happens after a very strong summer. He's a top-class goalie. The England thing will sort itself out, but he's a top-class keeper, and he's... people can make all the sounds that they do about situations. That's fair. But when you see someone, you work with him all the time, what he's done here and what he'll continue to do, then we just concentrate on that this time.
I appreciate it is a bit of a balancing act with injuries, some coming in, some coming out of the squad. But all the signings were relatively young signings. So I just wondered, how do you balance that with, their want to play? Fans want to see those new signings play, but they've got a lack of experience with some of the more senior members of your squad. How do you balance that?
Well, that's exactly what we've been trying to do. Bring them into the side at the correct time, bringing them in when they're ready, bringing them in to dip them in, dip them out, give them that feel of Premier League football. Some it works, some are ready, hand in glove, that's the way it goes. Some take a longer period. Jake's been very patient. He's going to have to be, because he's got three very, very good centre-halves, very experienced centre-halves there, but he's one that he knows, he's learning all the time. I think he's been training very well. Illy's kind of come to life now that we've pushed him wider and he's come involved more. Tim had a really good pre-season, a really good start to it, but if the truth be known, he was probably the one we were thinking who was probably going to be more of a slow burner. So that's sometimes the way it changes. And Jesper, of course, been in and out so far. Had periods when he looks like we know what he can be, and then other periods when he's found it tough. And there lies the four stories of the Premier League. That's how it can be. It's our job to filter it, monitor it daily, get feedback, see how they're feeling, see what they're learning, view their performances, and try and get it right, and try and get the timing right as well to when to put them in. And things you just put them in. If they're not ready, you can really hurt players. If they're not ready for the Premier League, you can really affect what they're going to do in the Premier League. So we're trying to build them in and get them there when they're ready, and therefore they keep going and keep improving.
So with that then, you mentioned Jake there. How close is he to starting for you, particularly when you've got Branthwaite as a maybe right now? How close, or what does he have to do? Is it more...
Well, Jared's situation was a little bit different, wasn't it? He'd been away on loan, he'd done well, slightly different. I know he's been at a club, not on loan, and then came back in and took the beginning part, injured in pre-season, come through it, and has done very well. He's probably at that stage, he's looking at them guys, and they're very good players and very experienced players in the Premier League. I spoke to him about it. He's here for the longer view. So I think it's a 4-year contract, but he'll be learning, he'll be looking at it and seeing it. He's had a couple of games as well, so his time will come.
So is that more then, rather than the physical side of it, it's more the mental side, the psychological side?
No, it's everything. It's everything. The Premier League's quicker, it's stronger, it's the mileage, all the rest of it. It all goes into the melting pot. It's the mental side. It's dealing with all the games, the grandeur of all the games. Everton Football Club, what it is, all them things. They're all to be part of what their learning curve is, not just on the pitch. Everything that's involved in it.
Thanks, Julia. Carl.
Hi, Sean. Apologies. It's another general coaching question, but you're one of a small group of English Premier League managers. I'm just wondering if you can assess the state of coaching for English coaches, into the level they're at. Not necessarily in terms of what it takes to be the England job, but just in terms of where the game is at in terms of coaching.
I can't really assess it, because I don't know all the levels and who's working where, but an overview would be everything that you learn on a course and all that sort of stuff is one thing. When you're actually out there doing it, that's a completely different thing. And the chance in the Premier League, we know there's only 20 Premier League clubs. Let's imagine we're suggesting that's one of the top levels of football, which it is, I believe, around the world, actually. then your chances are going to be limited just by the numbers game. And then if you put in the numbers game the amount of foreign ownership of clubs and the like, well, they might look at foreign managers rather than English homegrown managers. That's just part of the business. At the end of the day, people want to win. They want someone who can do the job and help the team win and help the club be successful. That's what it actually boils down to for me.
But in terms of, obviously, there's a lot of talk about English coaches. I mean, there's a lot of talk about English players in the Premier League and how many numbers there were there. But in terms of the opportunities that English coaches get, obviously you say it's limited at Premier League level, but
no, it's limited by the sheer. You've got 20 jobs, and not many English owners. So foreign owners may well, just because they're cultural back, go for a foreign manager because they're used to that. It's not necessarily because they don't understand British coaches are good, bad, or indifferent, or English coaches. It may be just because they're used to dealing with foreign managers, and that's what they want. Their model, some create a model that is more that way inclined. I think modern management is changing all the time, and I think it's going towards more of a head coach model, which I think we're all aware of now. You know, and I mentioned recently about this club, it's slightly different. Doesn't mean I'm managing everything, but it's a management style role because of me sitting there and answering to everything. You know, it's more of a management situation, whereas a lot of models now are more on the coaching situation. So they're choosing coaches that they think can be successful, and some of the coaches are already used to that model. English, British coaches still at clubs where they're getting used to that model, I think, because it wasn't like that not so very long ago.
thank you.
Thanks, Carl. Any further questions in the open section before we move on?